Hi, this is Dr. Kelly Rabenstein Donohoe with at Dr. Kelly Donohoe. And today I want to talk about creating space for great connections to happen. So one thing that therapists often say is that in therapy, we're creating the frame. And this is an idea that I love to think and talk about because creating the frame is another way of talking about having healthy boundaries and making places safe. Human beings, we talk a lot about, especially in Western culture, loving freedom. At the same time, human beings crave, love, and desire healthy boundaries, right? So boundaries can be wonderful. Boundaries can be overdone, and they can also certainly be underdone. So I wanted to give you some quick tips for the conversations that I hope that you're all having in your lives right now, right? A lot of topics are happening. A lot of us are at home with our families. A lot of really important, deep moments may be occurring. And if you want to be able to go deep and feel safe and make better connections, one great way to do that is to know how to create the space so that those awesome moments can occur. So whether you're talking about equality and what's happening in the world and the movement for greater equality, or Black Lives Matter, what is happening with people around you, or you're with your family at home during this unprecedented time of togetherness, that's what I'll call it, and having conversations or moments for conversation like you've never had before, it is so important to create a safe space. Even with our loved ones, especially maybe with our loved ones, and then with other people, in order to be able to make sure that everyone that's engaging in the work of getting closer feels that they are protected with boundaries. Now, if you need to learn more about boundaries in general, I did make another video called 3 Steps to Beautiful Boundaries. And this video is creating the walls of safety. So let's talk about what that looks like. So you're building a house, and that's how I like to, this is the metaphor that I've come up with. So whenever I'm working with companies or people or whoever I'm working with, I talk about this idea that we're building the house of safety in order to engage in these really awesome conversations. So the first thing is you're going to build walls in this house, right? We do need walls. So on our walls, we got 2, let's think about it as the walls, 2 specific walls, one being openness and the other being genuineness, okay? If you're not going to be able to be open, don't even engage in this, right? If you can't be open and vulnerable and allow the flow of information back and forth between people and be true with what you're saying and where you're coming from, there is no point. So let's keep that in mind. So openness, can you be open? How open are you? In my book, I talk a lot about how to assess how open you are and to be more open if you'd like to be, right? Openness is actually a personality trait. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. I'm going to have a video about different personality traits so that we can all have sort of a basic understanding of traits and where we stand. None are bad or good, but it's important to know. So are you open kind of in general or not? And what does that mean for when you're engaging with other people and you want to grow deeper connections? The other wall that I'd like to talk about is genuineness. When you are building a foundation for safety and comfort, you must be genuine. You must be true with what you say and how you are, right? So that is essential. If you're not a funny person or if humor doesn't come to you, don't try humor, right? Don't try to do what somebody else does. Be you. If you're a crier, cry. However you are, please be that way. Okay, so openness and genuineness. We got some walls. Woohoo! And now we're going to build a roof. This is my roof. We're going to build a roof on those walls, okay? And your roof is made out of boundaries and respect. So we're going to close in. We're going to keep out the rain and the elements on our beautiful openness and genuineness. We're going to protect that openness and genuineness by building boundaries and respect. Obviously, a lot of these are intertwined, right? If you have respect, then you're going to have better boundaries. So remember, we build boundaries in 3 ways. The first is you have to know what you're protecting, right? What your boundary is, where your line in the sand is. You got to know that. That requires usually some soul searching and thoughtfulness. So that's number 1. Number 2, you clearly communicate that boundary. And number 3, you hold the line, right? You maintain that boundary. And that number 3 is generally where we all get a little woo. Uh-oh, I slipped up. Okay, fine. Then you said it again. Calmly and kindly. So if you want to watch that video, you can, about boundaries, because I talk obviously a little bit more in depth about that. Boundaries are everything. Let's talk about respect for a minute. So remember, we got our roof here on our very important walls of openness and genuineness. One side is boundaries protecting us, and the other side is respect. Sometimes in therapy, we call this unconditional positive regard, meaning even if I don't really like you or like what you're saying, I have unconditional positive regard. This is Carl Rogers, one of my heroes. Beautiful, beautiful human being. But I like you because you're human. I have respect for you as a human being. So we all need to be able to respect the other human being. I try not to go on some social media anymore because I just see this total lack of respect for other human beings, and that will get us nowhere. People can sniff out disrespect like a beautiful little truffle pig smelling a truffle, right? So you gotta have respect. Find respect for the other person in the conversation. If you find yourself straying from that, you've lost the roof of your house and there is no safety, and your conversation you will not find a deeper and meaningful connection. You won't. Rain will get in and everything will go to shit. So there you have it. Okay, so boundaries, respect. Find a way to respect the other person in the moment and create those boundaries, openness and genuineness. Now, every house needs a door, right? It doesn't make sense to block the world out. So what is the door? Trust. You can't get in without trust. How do we build trust? I am going to talk about this a lot more in other videos. Trust is obviously complicated and important and gorgeous thing, right? Here's how you build trust. You say what you're going to do, you do it, and you're consistent, right? You don't make promises you can't keep. You make sure that if you offer openness and genuineness, that you maintain that and that you are true, right? Trust is not a one-time thing. It's about consistency. So if you're in a position of power, that means you need to examine that. If you're a parent and you want to have a deep conversation with a child, you need to set the ground rules. Let the child know, okay, we're going to talk about this, and here's the things we can talk about. Maybe we don't want to talk about these. If you're an employer talking to an employee, right? You can't promise people you're not going to fire them. If you're a teacher talking to a student, you can't promise they're not going to be impacted negatively by a deep and meaningful conversation. So we have to not make promises we can't keep, and we have to have those appropriate boundaries, and then we have to be consistent and true. So that's the way to build the frame of safety for deep and meaningful conversations that can lead to some deep, deep, wonderful connections. Let me know if you have any questions. You can message me, whatever, and there will be videos about each of these individual parts. Good luck out there, and let's all grow together.